Well, thank you very much. I'll be as brief as I can because we have a very tight schedule. I'll just say how pleased and proud I am to be here and how nervous I am at running the first high-level debate. Now, I think I have to ask Mary-Jane Ortega and Maimouna Sharif to join me. And I look carefully at the organizers. These are my two high-level panelists. Well, first of all, thank you so much for attending. And we're very pleased and proud to have you here. And hopefully this is going to be an interesting, brief debate. Can I first ask each of you, just to spend a little time, telling us a little bit about you and your city. So please, well, I take it whichever order you like. Maimouna, perhaps you would like to speak first, as I saw you reaching for a microphone. So please, just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your city. There'll be more questions to come.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. A very good morning to all my friends in this room. I'm Maimouna Muhammad Sharif, Mayor of the Municipal Council of Seberang Perai in Penang in Malaysia. It's in the north of Malaysia. It's very near to Thailand. So just to be specific in terms of the location. And my profession is a town planner. And I was appointed as a mayor in 2011, not elected, appointed by the state government and the civil servant. This is my 5th year. And before that, I'm a town planning officer. And I moved up from town planning to become the director of planning department and the Georgetown World Heritage Incorporated when we were listed in the UNESCO listing. I was the founder of the Georgetown World Heritage. And now I'm the mayor of the Municipal Council of Seberang Perai, the first lady mayor in the city. And as become the first lady mayor in the city, I'm the number 19 mayor. And of course, with the 24 councillors and only one lady. So our participation is not like what is in our first slide just now. And in Malaysia, we have 152 local authorities, only 3 lady mayors. Just I'm involved in many projects, and I will give through my little experience with you all. And by that, I think I'll stop now, and then we will discuss later. Thank you very much.
I think it's on.
It's on. All right. I'm Mary-Jane Ortega. I'm an educator. I was a manager. And then I became a politician. I was the first elected city mayor and the first lady mayor too in the city of San Fernando in the Philippines. But it's a very small city of 120,000 people and 80,000 transients. And so they said, how can a small city like you end up in the international field? Actually, I had so many other advocacies. Firstly, environment. And after my 9 years as being mayor, I became the Secretary General of CityNet, which is an association of cities in Asia Pacific. This was formed in 1987 because UN Habitat, UNDP, and the other United Nations agencies felt that the cities would become important entities. And they said cities in Asia Pacific should then be ready for their future. And we went into capacity building. My 4-year term as Secretary General was over, and they elected me special advisor to CityNet. So that is the background of my city from the Philippines.
Thank you very much. I have to say, 2 first lady mayors, I mean, it's actually, maybe this is a sign of the future. It's actually interesting and important. I think a happy coincidence that you both happen to be here. Now, I'm going to ask you now, just how important, give some idea of how important the provision of public space is in the larger political agenda. in your city. And if you like, you can expand that to the local, regional, or national agenda. Because obviously, there are a lot of things going on at all political levels. Of course, Maimouna, you're an urban designer anyway, so you have a particularly privileged position in understanding this. But obviously, this has to fit into a much bigger political picture, and a little bit of time on that from each of you would be very helpful.
Okay, in my city, we have 900,000 population with 738 square kilometer, with 3 districts. And in terms of the economics, it's very diverse, from agriculture, manufacturing, to the tourism products, and also tourism attractions. And open spaces is quite very in terms of understanding in my city. But when we talk about public spaces, I think it's more than just an open spaces, parks and open space. Public spaces, even though in our city in Malaysia, we have put up the definitions of open spaces in our Town and Country Planning Act in 1976, way back in 1976, which says that a land, whether enclosed or not, which is laid out or reserved for laying out wholly or partly as a public garden, parks, sport and recreation ground, pleasure ground, and also in terms of roads. But in terms of understanding earlier, is more on the public open spaces. But now I think, as the first speaker was mentioned, the Y generation, they are talking about public spaces. Where is my space? And in my city, first of all, what we did was that we have the legislation in the Town and Country Planning Act, and we have the quite detailed platform. We have the National Physical Plan, and we have the Structure Plan, we have the Local Plan, and we have the Action Plan, where we put in all this aspect other than housing, commercial industry, is also in terms of public spaces. So the understanding now is much bigger than just an open space, green space within the residential areas, and how we want to turn up the other spaces as a public in terms of roads, and also government building as an public space as certain category, because the spaces, it can be totally public, semi-public, or private or semi-private. So we categorize in this inventory, and when I was appointed as mayor of this Braham Perai, we come up with the inventory of all these public spaces. So we want to know what is our baseline look like in the city. And of course, in the higher level, in the central government, we have the national physical plan. We identify that there are 13 states in Malaysia. What are the position of the, in terms what we are talking now, public spaces in this every state, and we have to detail it into the our own plan. So in terms of the understanding and also the political mandate is already there in the Act, but now we would like to see the provision in the law to be taken into a reality. That is the main challenges. Thank you.
Well, even before I became mayor of the city of San Fernando, I started a botanical garden, a 20-hectare botanical garden, because I realized the importance of green spaces. But as Thomas Mellin said, most of the mayors usually start off by thinking that public places are green spaces alone. And then because of conferences like this, my eyes saw the beauty of streets as becoming a public place, of markets being a public space. And this is the importance of bringing the mayors together, because there are very few mayors who are urban planners like Mayor Maimouna. Most of the mayors come in having their own agenda without any concern or knowledge at all of public space. In fact, in the Philippines, we recently had a conference on public space, and Thomas Mellin was there with Cecilia Anderson, and also Mayor Maimuna. And one of the things that I realized when I discussed with the national government, they did not even have public space in the radar for their country policy making. And so by having this conference, it became part of the agenda now of the national government. So this is where advocacy comes. This is where best practices also come in. We have another lady mayor who's not here with us, and she's the mayor of Surabaya in Indonesia. I brought, because I'm now, although I'm no longer mayor, I've been out of office for the past 8 years, I'm the chairman of the Multisectoral Governance Council of my city, composed of the academe, media, and private businessmen. I brought them to Surabaya and to Bandung. And one of the things we learned there was 73 public places are in Surabaya, and they divided them into active and passive. They had 43 active parks and public places, and the others were passive. But the most important is that when we came back to my city, the businessmen decided we will follow the best practice of Surabaya. We, the private people, will now fund 2 public places. So this is now where best practices come in, and where we can see whether we can replicate good practices. But we have to increase the apostles for public places. And I hope that all of you here are apostles for public place.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, you both brought up a very important point, is there's a tendency when you think of public places only to think of squares and plazas and green spaces, but it is in fact the whole public urban network that we're talking about. And so thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's a very important issue. Now, Maimuna, you specifically mentioned challenges, and Mary Jane, you also mentioned the fact that public space was simply not on the radar, which I thought was also a useful expression. And so, I mean, it's very clear that both of you have a great interest and commitment, otherwise you wouldn't be here, of course. But nonetheless, there's always a gap between ambition and realization. And we know, all of those of us who are involved in trying to create any kind of urban design, which of course always incorporates public space, there are a great number of challenges. And I'd be interested to know, how you see these challenges, and also how you try and address them. And I'm also very interested in talking about not being on the radar, is that you have other politicians for whom this is just not an issue. I mean, clearly it is an issue. So somehow you have to come to a process to persuade other politicians that this is absolutely fundamental to city life. So I'd very much like to hear from both of you. I mean, you both raised it, so you can both elaborate on it further, please.
Thank you for that questions. As I mentioned earlier, in Malaysia and also in my city, where we have the quite clear acts under the Town and Country Planning Act, how do we define open spaces and public spaces. And we have the inventory, like in my city, we have 1,498 open spaces, which that is purely green, but not yet including the, in terms of the public areas and also the roads and all that. But the main challenges that I foresee as a planner and also as a mayor is in terms of the overall public spaces in inclusive and holistic manner. And it's early, and I'll be talking more as a urban planner because I look at the city as the engine of growth, and we need all these ingredients and to make it work in terms of the sustainability of the city. So one of the main challenges is planning and development. everything starts with planning. If you do the wrong planning and after that you want to repair and do afterthought, it's very difficult. But this is not an easy task in terms of the planning and development to look into closely the link between every entity in the city, what makes a city alive. And apart from that, in terms of these challenges, I listed here around 8 challenges in looking at public spaces. After we have the planning and development, we must have the plan-led development to a certain extent. It's not a developers-led development. But of course, we have to look into in-between win-win situation. A second, in terms of the education and awareness of the stakeholders, of the people using it, because later on I will link it into how we manage. If we educate and have increased the awareness of our city citizen, then you will see it will be much easier to maintain and finance the public spaces. And the third one, in terms of the rule of law, the legislation, the enforcement must be in place. When you talk about public spaces, not only green places, public spaces, as what we have discussed much earlier. And we have to be inclusive in terms of the gender mainstreaming. I have an experience where I went to a housing scheme, and this housing scheme in my city have a very highest vandalism in terms of the equipments in the parks. And I asked the teenagers, I said, what happened to this place? Why you keep on vandalize the equipment that we gave? And then said, Madam Mayor, you are providing equipment for the 12 years and below. And you put there, this equipment is to be for the 12 years and below. Instruction by the Mayor, Maimuna. I am 15 years old. Where should I go? Then I have no place to stay. And I have no place to play, and where shall I go? And this clicked my mind that we have to look at gender mainstreaming. It's not so much boys and girls or women and men, but gender mean in terms of the age structure, in terms of the provisions, and also the needs of each level of the population in the city. And when we provide, I ask them, what do you want? We want also a place to play, and we would like an outdoor gym. When I provided the outdoor gym for that particular residential area, my level of cost of maintenance really dropped. Because why? They have their place for them to play. This is the important of gender. If not, I'll be using a lot of money in terms of money, repairing, and maintenance. And then the fifth one is technology, innovation, creativity. I always say that finance restriction is not at the end of everything. It must be creativity and innovation. You will lead into a success. Sometimes many cities in the world say, I cannot do anything because I have no money. I have a limited finance. But to me, creativity is more important than finance. When you have creativity, innovation, somehow the finance will be there to help through the, I used to announce my 4-piece private, public, people partnership, and through the CSR. So as Mary Jane mentioned earlier. And the sixth one in terms of the consultation and engagement with the people. We move from participation to consultation. You know why? Sometimes people say that we must have a public participation. I think to a certain extent, I don't believe in any more public participation. You must go into a higher level, public engagement. Because one is public participation, you ask them to participate, you get all their data, and then whether you do it or not, we don't know. But we have engaged, then from time to time, they will come back to us and see whether we are doing our correct things or not. And last but not least is delegation and empowerment. It's very important. Once we engage them, then we deliver, and then we will empower, delegate and empower the community, or empower the businessmen, or empower the investors. But last but not least is the financings. These are the challenges 8 challenges which I feel that is the main challenges through my city, through my experience, in terms of taking into account of a human right in the city and including the public spaces. These are the 8 challenges which I personally go through and I personally experience it for the past 5 years as a mayor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was a very, very comprehensive list. Thank you. So, Mary Jane, over to you.
Well, Mayor Maimuna covered all, but I would like to emphasize the last, the 8th that she mentioned. Most of you here come from developed countries, and for developed countries, financing, money is not a problem. But for developing countries and for mayors of developing cities, their main problem would be money. And then they would come back and they would say, oh, I need more money for poverty alleviation so public places can wait. But then you have to talk to them and tell them, but public places can be an engine of growth. It can start up industries, it can start up the small, medium enterprises, and that could be a means for poverty alleviation. So when they would now see that investing in public places is also investing in poverty alleviation, then they would embrace public places some more. If we also tell them that through public places we enhance education, and this, therefore, would then tell them, you're shooting so many birds with one stone by improving public places. One of the things that I did in the past was for the Botanical Garden, we had entrance fees. And then in Buenos Aires, one of the things discussed in our conference on public places was that there should be social inclusion, that nobody should be kept out of public places. But I said, but how do you now maintain these public places if we do not collect entrance fees? And so ideas came up. They said perhaps you can set days where they should be free, but you should be able to open these public places even to those who cannot afford the entrance fees. But I would just like to tell you that while discussing this, my friends at the National Museum in the Philippines decided to remove the entrance fees to our National Museum. And just by removing the entrance fees, they had 5,000 entries more in 1 month than they have had in the past. And so by making the public place socially inclusive, you also heighten and improve the educational aspect of the people who go there. And how do you now maintain them? So that is the challenge for the mayors, to bring in their private businessmen as partners and to look for activists like the one I met very recently, Eva Clerk of Amsterdam. And I said, now I would like to have more social activism to improve a public place through entrepreneurial development. So these are just one of the challenges, but I wanted to highlight the one on number 8.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I must say, I haven't heard such a succinct and well-organized series of responses to a question like that. I think we can all learn a great deal from that. I'm just going to move on now, really to talk about why we're all here, and the future of places, and the role of international organizations. Part of this process is bringing together people from all over the world, and of which, of course, you've traveled further than a great many. So what role do you see international networks and organizations in the advancement of your objectives? And equally well, you obviously have very, very clear-cut policies, very, very clear-cut ideas, and have obviously derived a great deal from occasions such as this. But do you see any further role in being able to bring in international expertise or advice to help you?
Yeah, definitely. When from the very beginning, when I start work as a planner, and I have the opportunity to deal with United Nations. My first trip was under CityNet. I went for a course in 1997 in Japan. That was my first trip under the UNCRD, United Nations Center for Development Cooperation, for 3 months in Nagoya. That 1997 is a starting point for me to get involved with the international organization, because from that 3-month course, it's really opened up my eyes, because as a person, as an urban planner, a young planner in the 1997, and continuation in terms of this collaboration with CityNet. Now I'm in the Global Executive Committee of ICLEI, representing Southeast Asia, and also at home, I am the president of the Malaysian Association for Local Authorities. We call it MALA. So the collaboration with the international organization is very, very important to bring it down. Not only, I think normally the collaboration is at the national level. I here would like to suggest to you all that the collaboration must be really going down to the local authorities and meet the mayors. I think it's very good to have the Times magazine just now. It shows in the first slide, meet the mayors, because we are the mayors, we are the one who make the policy, whether it can be implemented or not implemented in certain ways. Yes, because we are the one, even you have the policies at the central level, they are the policy formulation. But the policy implementation, to me, is at the local level. Because we are the one who deal with the people at the local level, and with the collaboration with the international bodies, is like a capacity building. Actually, every day I am learning. Even here, so I'm come here to learn and also express my best practices and to share my little knowledge. And I hope that these 3 days and plus going around in Stockholm, I will learn a lot. Yesterday, I went to see Stockholm for nearly 3 hours, and I've learned a lot. So I think it's very, very important. One is that capacity building, and also to sharing the platform to share the best practices. Every city, how big, how small is the city, there must be a best practices in that city. For that little things, it can make a big impact because we are at the local. And also we have to gain trust with the international organization and the local, because if you, for example, you give certain finance or a certain help in terms of capacity building, you can see the outcomes, provided that local authority give the commitment to do so and the political commitment to do so. And last but not least is I really that, and also I realize the importance of continuous learning and continuous collaboration and networking with all the international organization, and also the aspect of the friendship cities. Apart from the international organization, is also to have a collaboration with the cities. Seberang Perai, we are the friendship city with Gwangju, and last year we signed the memorandum of understanding with Seoul City, and also we are going to be with Yokohama to share our best practices and also to learn from them in terms of the capacity building and also certain projects. So in terms as the public spaces, I realized that the internal networking and also internal network is very, very, very important, and also to gain the trust of the local people. When the mayor, for example, I'm being invited to come here, and I told my people on the ground, hey, your mayor has been invited to come to Stockholm. I'm not bringing myself here. I'm bringing my city and the voice of 900 over 1,000 population in Seberang Perai. So that is and they know it. And even just before I came down, a few of my cities said, good luck good luck, my mayor. I hope you can make a difference there and bring something back to Penang and also to Seberang Perai. That's their hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Maimuna, for being a witness to the importance of CityNet and how CityNet had introduced you to the importance of networking of cities. And I have been also active with ICLEI. In fact, I just finished my term as Vice President of ICLEI last year, and now it's Mayor Maimuna who's taken over as the representative for for Asia Pacific in the board. I have always believed in networking, and I have also been honored to be invited by the Swedish local authorities to come here, and so I learned a lot from the activities of the local authorities here in Sweden. But the most important is for us to have an open mind. The burden on us coming from developing cities, whenever we go to a conference, they always say, did you bring something back for our city? And I always tell them, of course, we bring something back, a new idea, a new perspective. It doesn't have to be money. But the most important is to have that idea. And with one idea, I'm sure we would be able to generate money to be able to accomplish it. So we have networked with UN Habitat. I had the pleasure of being a member of UNACLA, the United Nations Advisory Council of Local Authorities. And it has always been a very good experience to meet people of all walks of life. And I would like to say, whatever organization it would be, networking is the best. Whether you network with an NGO in a far-flung country, or whether you network with a big international organization, it is what you get out from it that counts. So network with everybody around.
Thank you. And of course, that's exactly what we're doing right now. But of course, you are both committed, and I sort of get the feeling that the ability to not only bring back ideas, but to attend, but also to bring in expertise is a very useful tool in persuading people of the greater importance of urban space, urban design in your own countries. Would that be correct? Okay, I think that's very helpful. Now, I think what we can now do is put you under even more pressure because there are a lot of people here, and some of these people may want to ask questions or make particular points to which you will be asked to respond. If nobody else does it, I'll come up with something, but let's see. There's a lot of people here. Please.
Thanks. I'm Lucinda from Co-Design in Australia. I had a question for Mayor Sharif. You mentioned that creativity is more important than finance, and I'm just wondering if you could share any case studies of how you've seen that in action in Penang.
Yeah, my city is not a rich city. We are not a rich city. That's why I have around 5,000 staff under me. And if we just look at the finance, we can make a conclusion, do nothing. But I challenge my staff. Yes, we have not much money, but we would like to be at par with other cities. How can we do it? Let's start with the brainstorming and the innovation and the creativity is all about. In terms of public spaces, as I have a few hundreds public spaces, open space in this case, and we are not able to manage it, everything. And what we did was that this creativity, we call for a town hall meeting. We call it budget dialogue, gender responsive participatory budgeting for what we want to do every year. Now we just did the last budget dialogue on the 13th of June. And we asked the people. Before that, we did it on online survey with the stakeholders with 4 languages, because with Chinese, Indian, Malay, and English. And we get their suggestion. And I will be to my surprise, they said that actually there are so many investors. I have a multinational corporation, free trade zone in my city. We have so many hoteliers in my city, and also in terms of the commercials. And as far as, for example, for the public spaces, they are come up, I push to them, can we do another 1 more P? Instead of 3 Ps, can we do 4 Ps? In terms of management of public spaces. And they said it's public, private, people partnership. Public is us, private is the private developers, private entities. We need people. If we have public and private, without people looking at it, people having it or treasure it, then at the end of the day, it will become nothing. So we come with a project 4 Ps and CSR. And to my surprise that now, of all this, the data that I have, nearly 64 of my open spaces have been taken up through 4P CSR project. And I save quite around nearly 7 million of Malaysian ringgit in maintaining that public spaces. They adopt the public spaces and adopt and make it more better. At the end of the day, they also maintain it for 5 years by just giving a advertisement permit to advertise their product or whatever they do it. At just a very small, we have a very, we have the guidelines, and these are the creativity. That's one thing. Another thing is that I have 738 square kilometer, and I have 900,000 population. And I have 5,000 staff. How can I monitor development and system of what they call it, the complaint from all the citizens? We do it citizen action technology. You can have it now. If there is internet, you can go into my system, CAT@betterpenang.com. And to now, I can see what is happening in my city to the last complaint that is in my city to the last minute, as long as you have the internet. Maybe you can those who have the smartphone, CAT.betterPG.com. You will see that all these people, the youngsters, will give their feedback. To me, it's not complaint. Complaint is very, very negative. I look at as a feedback, positive feedback to the very last hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and throughout the year. This is using technology, creativity. How do we can manage the city? So that's why I meant that we don't need, if I want to sweep all the, to get all those people to maintain, to manage, and also I need a planning inspectors, building inspectors to go around 738 square kilometer, I need at least 10,000 staff. But here I have 900,000 population. Through that system, developed together with the people in the city, in my city. That's why we call it citizen action technology. And with that, they will give us all the information at all time, and this will reduce the cost of doing business. And I can see, and I have one small, only 2% manning this system in my office, and we have a KPIs and all that. That's what I meant by innovation technology will go beyond financial constraint. Thank you. I can have more example to tell you, endless example. But maybe you can talk in private if you want to know better. Thank you very much.
Okay. There's a hand up here. Is there a microphone?
Hi there. There we go. In an attempt to address the elephant in the room, there's a very implicit tension between the idea of sustainable cities and cities as engines of growth. Well, in the context of a finite world filled with finite resources, we can't be constantly growing, although that's often the paradigm we find ourselves working within. So how, this is a question to both of you, I suppose. How do you have any ideas of how we might navigate this tension moving forward, and what are the roles of public spaces in the navigation?
Okay. All right. Well, first, when I came up with the vision of our city, that it would be a botanical garden city, which was supposed to be the symbol of our commitment to the environment, I was criticized by some sectors because they said it should be economic growth before environmental sustainability. And this is where we said we can have both. Through environmental sustainability, we can push and have environmental economic growth. But there are those who see it as contradictory because the economies that they are thinking of would be the industrial way of economic empowerment. And this is what we are now saying, that we should not follow the examples of those who have been ahead of us. Because those who were ahead of us thought that first economic development, and then with the money, then we can cure what has been destroyed. But what we're espousing now is, why do we still have to destroy if we can have a way where we can have economic development with environmental sustainability? And this is where we need, from our point of view in developing cities, we need help also from the technologies of the developed countries. Like, for example, solar power is something we want to embrace, but it's so expensive. Then you now have to go and talk to them. You have to tell them. And I was listening to somebody talking about solar power. They said, if you put your money in the bank now, it will earn you very little interest. If you put your money in solar power, it will save you 35%. And so your money is better off in solar power. So, you know, these things are the ones that you have to share with people for them to be more open to adopting renewable energy, adopting to a sustainable growth, and not just look into economic development. And I would just like to add to the question earlier. You know, I was recently invited for a breakfast meeting. And when I met with Holcim Cement, which is based in my province, they said, you know, we invited you because you talked of a marine center 2 years ago. And we now have a proposal to come up and show you. You know, it is something so heartening that a seed planted 2 years ago, which was forgotten, I thought it was forgotten by the ones who heard it, was there, and they thought about it, and now we are coming up with a project that will be a sustainable project of a marine center with tourism for economic growth, and this would then help the city to be sustainable as well as be an engine of growth. So I hope that could answer you. And now back to Maimuna.
Okay, thank you for that question. Actually, sustainable city, livable city, whatever BERL you are talking about, to me, it's just to provide the good quality of life to everybody in the city. It's just sometimes a connotation. People talking about compact city, intelligent city, smart city, livable city, sustainable city. To me, down to the ground, the people just want to have a good quality of life and a very good governance. This is very important. Because sometimes when we talk to the people on the market, on the road, when you talk about sustainability, they don't know. But if you talk about the clean place, clean market, clean environment, clean water, clean drainage, this is to them to reach to the ground. That is what is sustainable is all about. And when we have all this, clean environment, clean market, clean water, clean sewerage, maybe it's also clean in terms of the food. That is where the investors will come in. That is where when you call it that the city is the engine of growth. And city as an engine of growth is a various in every cities, and what you call it. But at the end of the day, what we want is like for my city, we want to have cleaner, greener, safer, and healthier Seberang Perai. We don't go to the bombastic, I want economic growth, this much, I want this. But when we have cleaner, greener, safer, and healthier city, I think you will come it by its way, and also together with that, the economic growth. People will come to our city. Hey, look, I want to come to Seberang Perai to invest. Because why? You have cleaner, greener, safer, and healthier. Cleaner here is not in terms of rubbish alone. Cleaner in terms of administration. Cleaner, good governance. Clean in terms of fast approval. And also in terms of the money spent, and we are accountable. Competency, accountability, and transparency have to be there. That's why we are going for the CAT governance. CAT, competency, accountability, and transparency. So by all this, putting all these ingredients together, at the end of the day, people will come, look, I want to come and invest. Knocking our door, we will come invest with you. But of course, we have, it's not as simple as A plus A, or 1 plus 1 is 2. But there are many underground ingredients that we have to look into this. So, but of course, when we talk about the, in terms of the sustainable, I think if we are continuing learning, I think if from the very beginning, we are talking about zoning. Then after that, we say that, oh, zoning is not, we must look into the urban sprawl. Urban sprawl is not good because you have all this transportation problem. Compact city, we have everything there, compact city. Compact city, no, it's compact city alone. We have to have a smart city. Smart city alone cannot. We have to be a very integrated, intelligent city and international city. So I think with all that, that is the principle. But down to the people on the ground, they just want to have a good quality of life and maintain their place to stay, and to a certain extent to get what is their dream. Everybody had their dream to come through the local authority and through the politician and also through the people who have the power in making decisions. Thank you.
And Mary Jane, you'd like to add something?
Adam, I just wanted to add, because Mayor Maimuna mentioned about 1 plus 1. There's something I learned here in Stockholm when I was here with the local authorities. And they believe that Stockholm is a symbiotic city, that 1 plus 1 is 3. And I hope that today it will also be 3.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have one quick question, and I see there's a lady in the front here. If we could be fairly quick question, if I could ask
it's
this
quick.
time, fairly quick responses.
It's very quick, and I hope it will last 3 days and more. I hear a lot about economical growth and money, and hoping that you will bring back some money when you come back from the conference. I am from a country with economical growth, the Netherlands, and we've come very far. And with coming very far, there was also a loss of the sense of community, people taking care of each other. That's what we really miss now a lot. Also because the money is a bit diminishing in the Netherlands. We have less money and we're looking more to the communities. Can you do it? But there are no more or not so many communities anymore. And in countries where there's not so much money, you have more communities, more people like your countries taking care of each other. And I will ask you, please look at our struggle. And because we are looking at your countries, I am looking at your countries where people still take care of each other, how they do it, why they do it, etc. And I think we can learn a lot there from each other.
Please help.
I don't know if you want a quick response to that.
Okay, I attended a conference in Toyota City, and one of the topics was aging. And they said, we have a problem of aging. And I came up with one suggestion. And they said, they all smiled. The moderator said, it shows you come from the Philippines. Because I said, if we can only, I said, come up with a subsidy not from national government, not of money, but a subsidy of grandparents to their children to help them have grandchildren, because now they don't want to have children anymore, you know, the second generation. So, but if grandparents will say, we will be there for you, we will take care of your grandchildren, we hope that you will also take care of us. And they all said, that's spoken just like from the Philippines. But I said, why not? You know, that should be a change, a shift of paradigm, that we should be taking care of each other, that family is the main unit of society, and the family should help one another. So I would like to share that with you.
Yeah, just my comment is that in my experience in my city, we have a lot of CBO. We don't have that many NGO, community-based organization. We work together with a community-based organization, and in order to work with them, my experience that we have to build up the trust. How to build up the trust? We have to go to the ground and meet them. Either we do it daytime or nighttime, Sunday or Saturday. So in that sense, I have no weekend. No, we have to really work. We have to really build up the trust. Through my experience, once we build up the trust, then the eagerness to work together will be there. So, but we have to break the ice and build the trust. That's all my comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to call a halt there. We were promised a high-level panel, and we got a high-level panel. It was wonderful to hear such a comprehensive thinking about not only the issue of space, but actually the whole issue of managing the urban environment. So thank you both very much. And I think also, if I may say, I think possibly, I don't know if we don't know, the majority of people here come from Europe or North America. But actually, that's not where the real problems, the real future and the real issues lie. I think you used the phrase, cities in the West Pacific need to be ready for their future. I think the West Pacific, and for that matter, Sub-Saharan Africa, are the places which need as much help and as much international collaboration as we can possibly offer. I think, certainly I feel what I'm doing in my own business is a boutique activity compared with the problems in Western Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. So to have a high-level panel from that background is a really wonderful start to the whole process. So thank you very much indeed.